Hey, what's up guys, it's me your boy Oraban Kazday Kvinich back here with another brand new video, and I hope you guys are having a great day. And first of all, I would like to apologize for not uploading videos for like quite a while now. And I know I have already missed a couple of Grand Prix for the prediction videos, for race reviews and for my driver rating. But I am back and I am not going to slack off anymore. So we are here for the Hungarian Grand Prix weekend prediction. So without any further ado, let's get right into the video guys. Well, for my top 3 qualifiers, I have Max Verstappen on pole position. Well, I think if he continues his run of form, if the upgrades that Red Bull brings to the car works as planned, Max Verstappen is surely going to outpace everyone, including his teammate, like he has been in the past couple of weekends, and would take a very comfortable pole position. So the pole position prediction is not really a bold one. It's pretty typical for the 2023 season at least. So moving on to the driver that I think is going to qualify P2 in the Hungarian Grand Prix, I think it's going to be Sergio Perez. Well, he has to. He clearly has the pace. For the past couple of race weekends, the last 5 races, his qualifying has been the biggest weakness of his overall race weekend performance. His racecraft is actually pretty good. His race pace is actually very good and it's competitive. It's only the qualifying that is putting him on a major back foot. And I think it's partially his own fault, and the other half is mostly down to bad luck and poor timing. And I think Sergio Perez really needs to work on his qualifying, his 1 lap pace. And I think the Hungarian Grand Prix would really be the weekend in which he's going to have a smooth weekend again and would probably return back to normalcy. And I think Sergio Perez will comfortably qualify P2 if obviously everything goes right. And the driver that I think who's going to qualify third in the Hungarian Grand Prix, it's Lando Norris. Well, yep. McLaren seems to be on a major uphill in terms of their overall car development. Their car space seems to be improved significantly, and the Hungaroring is a track in which the McLaren usually performs brilliantly well. And if all the history could repeat itself and the recent major form of McLaren is to be continued, then Lando Norris to qualify P3 is not actually a far shot. It is very much possible. And that is my top 3 qualifiers for the Hungarian Grand Prix. So now let's move on to the biggest gainers of the weekend. And for the driver, I have Daniel Ricciardo. Well, I think Daniel would quite comfortably outpace Yuki Tsunoda. His race pace, being set by Christian Horner, is very competitive, and if that is anywhere near truth, then I think Daniel Ricciardo would probably be the biggest gainer of this weekend in the mid to the lower midfield. And this is his first race return since Abu Dhabi of 2022. So I expect for him to have a banger of a race. I'm not having any huge expectations, but I definitely have expectations for Daniel Ricciardo to outqualify or even outperform his teammate Yuki Tsunoda. So moving on to the team that I think is going to have the biggest gains this weekend, I think it's going to be Alpine. I feel like Alpine would have a decent weekend, or a weekend in which they would comfortably qualify both the cars into Q3 and finish the race in the top 7 with both the cars. Alpine, they've had a pretty rough last 2 races. I expect for them to have a really good weekend here in the Hungarian Grand Prix. So moving on to the biggest losers. Well, for the driver, I have Yuki Tsunoda. Well, with Nick De Vries, he was walking in with a bit of an unknown, because all Yuki had as a benchmark was that one race that Nick De Vries had in 2022 at Monza. But other than that, there was not really any pressure on Yuki Tsunoda. But with the return of Daniel Ricciardo and him being his teammate for the rest of the season and maybe even for the entirety of the next season, there is a lot of pressure on Yuki Tsunoda. Whether he takes it or not, that is secondary, but I think it's on. The game is very much on inside the AlphaTauri team between both the drivers, because both the drivers are gunning for that Red Bull seat for the 2025 season. And if Daniel Ricciardo walks into the team in the first race, if he manages to outrace and outqualify Yuki Tsunoda, then it's pretty much a huge dent in confidence for Yuki Tsunoda. So all he would be trying to do is to outperform Daniel Ricciardo. So if that is the case, Yuki Tsunoda is not a driver who actually performs good under pressure. He tends to crack under pressure. He's a little bit too hot-headed even in 2023, even though he has evolved a lot since his rookie season in 2021. There is still a lot of room to grow for Yuki. So I think with that pressure, if that gets to his head, I feel like Yuki Tsunoda would have pretty much a disastrous weekend here at the Hungaroring. So moving on to the team that I think is going to have a crappy weekend, I think it's going to be Haas. Well, I think they're going to qualify really good, at least with Nico Hülkenberg, but their race pace, in the last couple of Grand Prix, their tire degradation is just too horrendous. I mean, they go through their tires like no one else, and they really need to fix their tire degradation issue with their next couple of upgrades. And I hope they really do focus on that, because that's where they're really lacking behind rest of the grid. So I think because of the tire degradation issue alone, Haas is going to have a pretty rough weekend here at the Hungaroring. So moving on to my bold predictions now. So the first bold prediction that I have for the Hungarian Grand Prix is Daniel Ricciardo to score points. Well, it can be P10, just 1 point, but I feel like Daniel Ricciardo would somehow squeeze out a point. I mean, he's walking into this race to prove a point to everyone on the grid that he has not lost his magic, and he would be giving everything he's got to show Red Bull that he is worthy of that second seat at Red Bull for the 2025 season. And I'm sure that he would want to start off his second innings in his Formula 1 career with a bang. So scoring a point with that AlphaTauri, which is the slowest team on the grid right now, would be a massive statement. So I feel like Daniel Ricciardo would score a point at least in the Hungarian Grand Prix. So moving on to my second bold prediction, Mercedes and Aston Martin in a tight battle. Well, with the recent form of McLaren, they really seem to have jumped both Aston Martin and Mercedes. Ferrari are pretty much nowhere there, so let's not talk about them now. But I feel like Mercedes and Aston Martin are now still pretty much neck on neck in terms of their pace. So I'd feel like there's going to be a tight battle between Mercedes and Aston Martin, or maybe Mercedes versus Fernando Alonso here at the Hungaroring, because Fernando also banks on his Aston Martin pace around the Hungaroring. He actually predicted a race win around here at Hungaroring. So I feel like Mercedes and Aston Martin would have a very tight battle for maybe a top 5 spot in the race. So moving on to my third bold prediction, I have Ferrari with a dreadful performance to be continued. Well, I feel like Ferrari has not had a strong weekend pretty much since the Australian Grand Prix. So in Silverstone, they finished P9 and P10. They still seem to be struggling a bit with the tire degradation, even though their race pace seems to have improved quite a bit. They are still, I feel like they are still slightly behind Mercedes and Aston Martin, and now even behind McLaren. So I feel like their dreadful form of performance would continue here in the Hungaroring as well. So that is my 3 bold predictions for the Hungarian Grand Prix, guys. Now let's move on to my podium finishes. Well, for P1, the race win, I have, unsurprisingly, Max Verstappen. Well, at this point, I feel like it's just inevitable, unless there is some nature or some bad luck for Verstappen due to reliability. Nothing's really going to stop Max from winning a race or taking a pole position, at least in the 2023 season. So I feel like Max would quite comfortably win this race. And let's move on to P2. Well, the driver who I think is going to finish second in the Hungarian Grand Prix, I think it's going to be Sergio Perez. Well, I feel like with the upgrades that Red Bull is going to bring for the Hungarian Grand Prix, it's really going to put a huge gap between Red Bull and rest of the grid again. And I feel like with that gap, if Max and Checo actually manage to lock out the front row, I think it would be a pretty straightforward race for the Red Bull team. And Sergio Perez would be able to finish second if he starts second or even third. He really has to get his act together. I mean, his past couple of races has not been his strongest, and he really needs to find his footing. And what he really needs to fix is his qualifying. His Saturday is what he needs to fix. He needs to know when he has to push, and he needs to know when not to. I mean the Austrian Grand Prix weekend, it's a weekend where he could have comfortably gotten P2 for the main race like he did in the sprint qualifying, and he missed out massively because he just pushed on the wrong time. And I feel like if he actually gets his act together, P2 in the Hungarian Grand Prix would actually be a good return to form for Sergio Perez. So moving on to P3, I have Lando Norris. Yep, I feel like the top 3 drivers that I have for the qualifying would finish the race in the exact same spot that they start the race from. I feel like McLaren would do really good around the Hungaroring in general, and with their recent pace and form, I feel like it's just even more cemented that they would be the second best team here at the Hungaroring as well. Especially with Lando Norris behind the wheel, it is just inevitable. I mean, his racecraft and his one lap pace is just brilliant. So I feel like Lando Norris would finish third in the Hungarian Grand Prix. So yes guys, that would be my Hungarian Grand Prix predictions. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, make sure to hit the thumbs up button and let me know in the comments on your Hungarian Grand Prix prediction. I'm excited to know. So with that being said, I would like to wrap up this video guys. If you did enjoy, make sure to hit that thumbs up button and don't forget to subscribe to the Autobahncast YouTube channel if you haven't already. Also hit that bell icon if you haven't already, and turn on all notifications so you get notified whenever I upload a brand new video. It's me, your boy Autobahncast aka Vinesh, and I'm out. Love you guys, stay safe, peace.